All right, so a viewer from Brooklyn Park wants to help our panel on the pre-K issue, and he or she has a suggestion here. Maybe we should just separate the K-12 and pre-K questions and deal with them separately. Maybe that'll help us reach an agreement. My guess is that, well, anyway, I'm not going to guess. But let's respond to the viewer's question. Representative Thiessen?
So, I mean, I think that I think that the reason that they are together is just more innate, more a creature of the way that our committee structure is set up and our budgets are set up. The money all runs through the Department of Education, largely. And so it may be a suggestion worth looking at. And I imagine as part of the discussion that, I mean, I think that piece probably did come through when the realization hearing from school districts and school boards and superintendents that 0.5% or 1% that people were proposing to put on the formula wasn't sufficient to avoid layoffs, wasn't sufficient to avoid larger class sizes, and there was a response from the legislature on that and the K-12 side, and then separately trying to find money for the early childhood piece. I think it does raise another question, though, which is the one, you know, and I don't know if we'll be able to struggle through this in this special session, but the real question is, you know, we have scholarships, which I think has broad bipartisan support. We have school readiness. You know, the governor has the pre-K proposal, which I think is actually a proposal really worth seriously considering. We have our child care subsidies. All of these programs are going essentially to do the same thing, which is to support families and young kids. And we have like the nurse visiting program for even younger kids, 0 to 2. One thing we haven't done well as a legislature and we need to do is figure out how all of those pieces fit together, because we do spend quite a lot of money in this area, but it doesn't always, you know, the pieces don't always fit together accurately. And so spending some time, I think, stepping back and looking at the 0 to 5-year-old time period from a more comprehensive approach, I think could actually lead to some better solutions and maybe be a way that we can find some compromise.
I'd like to say that I think there are a lot of ways we could do things, and I read in the Governing magazine that we legislators get the city of San Antonio in Texas put into effect a 1/8% sales tax for 4-year-old school. And in some cases, they had, as you said, Senator Anderson, there wasn't, or Representative Anderson, I'm sorry, they didn't have room, that they formed like a co-op. They built a building that was all for 4-year-olds, and that certainly could be something that's done. I think the main thing is really to have people honestly say that they support pre-K education, and then it will happen, because I think it's very doable. And I have suggested to the commissioner and to the governor that let's just put a pot of money out there for pre-K, and those schools that are ready for it and can handle it should do it. And those that can't, you don't have any room, you know, can't find the teachers, well, they'll get to that point, and I would maintain that the parents and the people in the districts will be clamoring at their school boards and superintendents to say, we want our children in 4-year school in school at 4 years of age, and it will happen. If you really want it to happen, I think it will happen quite easily, actually.
Well, I think there are some other issues with this that is part of the reason why there's some resistance on the part of some in the legislature. I'm one of them that says this may not be the best way to approach this. The governor's plan really says that the pre-K has to be in the public school system, and so if you want to have you can certainly choose another place for pre-K if you want to, but the funding that he's talking about only would go to the public school system, which is why I think is part of the education bill. It also is not targeted, which means that potentially millionaires and billionaires would be able to send their kids for free to a pre-K education in the public school. So there's an expansion here of the mission, if you will, of K-12 education that some of us find a little troubling. I just happened to read today an article in Psychology Today, which I don't think has a political bent particularly, but the article was about the differences between academic preschool and what they call play-based preschool. And from what the article said, the research shows that having an academic pre-K or even academic kindergarten doesn't have lasting results and can, in fact, do more damage to kids as they mature and they don't have that sort of socialization that comes from kind of a play-based environment. So I think there's more than just, do you care about pre-K education? I think Art Rolnick is right. There may be a need to target certain kids and make sure they have that opportunity, but what the governor is proposing is much, much broader than that. I think it raises some real questions that need to be addressed, and I think it's going to be a tough thing to come to grips with, but I don't think he's fair in saying that people who don't support his proposal are not in favor of education. I wish he wouldn't have said that. I don't think that's true. I think there are different approaches, and there's a very sincere debate going on.
I would agree with you, Senator Han. It doesn't mean that people don't believe in education, but, Minnesota is at the bottom of the pile for educating or working with 4-year-olds, and that is a fact. And so all of the other states have apparently, and cities have apparently found it to be very valuable or something worthwhile. Anoka Hennepin School District, one that I represent, has gone ahead on their own and started bringing in the 4-year-olds because they found so many children that weren't ready for kindergarten. And you know what? It pays off.
But, I mean, it's the whole idea of having it be a one-size-fits-all approach, which I think is just a waste of resources. We have a finite number of resources available to us. Wouldn't it be better to get those resources to the students that need it the most, rather than, as you say, having it go to people that certainly have the financial means and have the resources available to them to find a center that meets their needs? I'll just, speak from my personal experience. I'm probably the one closest to having a child in daycare, in a child care setting. My son is 7. It was just 3 years ago that he was in that. In fact, he goes to morning pre-K or morning care before I come to the Capitol. And I spent weeks interviewing all the different facilities to find the one that met my standards, my husband and I's standards. And we wanted the place that had a balance between playtime, that had a balance between academics, and it wasn't just one size, one way to go about it. If you have it in a situation where parents now are required to only go to this public school setting and don't have that opportunity to kind of figure out what meets their needs best or what they want to see for their child, I think you're taking away the parental involvement that we so clamor for in our child's education, that we view as being very important to having a child be successful in a long-term academic setting. So I think it's just not. There is a better way to use those resources, and that's where I agree with Art Rolnick and his philosophy of target those resources to the students that need it the most, and we'll get the better bang for our buck in the long run.
I think the thing, though, is that, first of all, no one is being required to go to a pre-K program. Parents can certainly choose to send their child and perhaps use scholarships that we have to send them to a different kind of program. So no one's being told that you have to go. It's not like first grade where you have to actually sit in the seat in a school. So I don't think that that's really a fair argument. And this issue about targeting, we have about 64,000 4-year-olds in the state of Minnesota, roughly, and about 42% of them are 185 free or reduced lunch level. So they would qualify for free and reduced lunch. So that's about 27,000 kids. We're now serving 6,000 or 7,000 of them with the scholarship program. So in terms of targeting where those resources are needed, we're already missing 20,000 kids every year in Minnesota who probably could use those. Beyond that, even some of these middle class families who may not qualify there, many of those families probably do have, some of them certainly have children that would benefit from this. So I think that clearly this is a complex debate that we need to continue. The last thing that I would say, though, is there was just a referendum in Willmar this week where the people of Willmar, the voters of Willmar, the parents and the kids, so not the school board, not the school district, although they supported it, said we're going to raise our property taxes to invest in facilities for pre-K. So I think the people of Minnesota out there recognize this, and it's reflected as one example in that vote in Willmar.
But you said it right there, Representative Thiessen. This is a complex issue, and I don't think that we've had this level of conversation on this issue. And it's kind of like I feel like we have to jump in, or else, the lake is going to be gone tomorrow, and that's not the situation. And I think if the governor was willing to, as you said, he put it out there as an idea. Ideas, a vision. Well, that takes time, and I don't think that he has thought through all. I'm not saying this as a criticism. I'm just saying I think there is a lot more to this issue that we need to have a conversation about, rather than jumping into something that we may later on regret.
I really have to I would say, correct some of the information that's come forward. I don't think the governor sees this as the only way to take care of 4-year-olds. He's been very supportive of, in fact, of talking about having the learning readiness programs, including ECFE, Head Start,
Northside Achievement Zone.
Northside Achievement Zone, yes. So I do really believe that if we would have put in, I thought maybe $50 million and put it into to the pre-K program, the governor would have been satisfied. As I say, it was a vision. I don't think he really expected it to pass.
I think we're going to probably not resolve that issue here, but let me just say that this has been an exploration of some of the philosophical divide and issues that exist on this question, the likes of which you don't often see, and I really appreciate the contribution of all 4 of you on this question, and I look forward to you, all 4 of you, settling this issue in your one-day special session, and I'm sure it'll all just be taken care of there. I think there will be more conversation. I think there will.